Good morning to one and all present today. I welcome you all to this special plenary on academia driving innovation and startups. Today we have a galaxy of experts present with us. I welcome Principal Secretary, Higher and Technical Education, Government of Gujarat, Anji Sharma Madam, who happens to be the chairperson of Gujarat Student Innovation and Startup Hub, iHub. And she was the pioneer behind the Student Innovation and Startup Policy, which was one of the kinds policy intervention of Government of Gujarat, which has now become a national phenomenon of a framework how innovation and startups can happen in academia. I also welcome Dr. Himanshu Pandya, Chief Mentor of iHub, and also Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University. It is under his leadership, Gujarat University has featured in the top 60 NIRF university systems in India this year. Welcome you, sir. We also have Sri M. Nagarajan, Commissioner of Higher Education, Government of Gujarat, and Honorary Executive Director of iHub. He's a very distinguished bureaucrat having an entrepreneurial blending. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. We also have Professor Uday Desai, the founding former director of IIT Hyderabad, a very outstanding institution builder and innovation promoter. He has been in boards of dozens of companies and has been a very well-wisher of all the innovation ecosystem in the country. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. We have with us Dr. Himanshu Rai, the director of IIM Indore. He is known to many of us. He has experience at IIM Ahmedabad as a student. He knows the city and ecosystem very well. Welcome, sir. We are privileged to have you and learn from you. We also have Professor Nari Saran Pandey from IIM Lucknow. He is the head of the Entrepreneurship Center at IIM Lucknow. And Professor Pandey is somebody who has spent decades in industry with Tata Motors, with L&T. He has built the mega plants at Haridwar, Lucknow, and he can really bring in perspective how we can interface with industry, academia, and startup ecosystem. We also have Professor Gurumurthy from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is the CEO of the Innovation Center at IISc Bangalore, who is the former chairperson of Center for Product Design and Innovation at IISc Bangalore. Welcome you, sir, for sparing time today. We also have Dr. Saji Gopinath. He has been a great supporter of what we are doing in our innovation ecosystem in Gujarat. He was a champion and was face for the innovation and startup ecosystem in Kerala government. He was earlier the CEO of Kerala Startup Mission, and now he is the founding vice chancellor of Kerala University of Digital Science, Innovation and Technology. This is a wonderful, distinguished plenary, and this session is going to discuss on how academia will promote innovation and startup in the whole nation, and particularly the respective states. This session will also discuss about how industry, academia, and other stakeholders can collaborate. The session will also discuss about the experiences and insights of each of these outstanding leaders who have invested their decades of time and energy in promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in respective institutions. Without wasting much time, may I request Anji Sharma Madam, Principal Secretary, Higher and Technical Education, Government of Gujarat, to deliver her keynote address to put the context.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to give the keynote address today in this illustrious panel of academicians, who are not only academicians, but they are also working in their own way towards promoting the startup ecosystem in the country. And by far, I would say that this is the most illustrious panel on startup ecosystem that I have addressed. So I'm sure we're going to have a good outcome of this panel out of the discussions. Gujarat is a very different case from other states as far as startup and innovation ecosystem is concerned. And in fact, academia has been one of the key drivers of the innovation and ecosystem in startup ecosystem in Gujarat. And we launched the student startup and innovation policy way back in January 2017 as a part of Vibrant Gujarat, when we decided that to create a pipeline of projects for the startups, we have to do something in the academia to promote innovations and to bring the young minds into the startup fold. And from there started the journey of funding prototypes, of sensitizing people, on sensitizing students, faculty members. In fact, Students came later. First, we had to sensitize the faculty members on the concept of innovation and concept of startup. People won't know what is a startup. Any business is a startup. No. Any project is an innovative project. No. So all these things had to be thrashed out, and it took us something like 7 to 8 months to get into the head of some of the prominent faculty members what startup and innovation ecosystem is all about. And our idea was to use these people to kind of roll the whole thing over to the entire student and the faculty lot. And with the grace of God, we could do that successfully, and we could sensitize most faculty members and now the students also, as a result of which the startup movement has spread across the length and breadth of the state. And even in the remotest of the areas, the institutions, the students, and the faculty members have got into the startup fold. And that's what we consider as, I consider personally, as the one of the biggest achievements of the student startup and innovation policy, other than, of course, the patents and the projects supported, the prototypes created, or the various programs that we have launched, or the capacity building. So all these things apart. In fact, when we created iHub as a Section 8 company, the iHub is basically a common resource center, and the target, the focus was made mostly on capacity building. Now, some people would say that, why do you focus only on capacity building? Because that's where we lack. So I said, that's where we start, and that's where we focus, because incubation you can do anywhere. Having an incubator is not a big thing. Have a mentor, have a computer, and not even a computer, and you can incubate even at home. But it's the capacity building that's important. If I have to create, if I have to have, say, job creators all over the state, and I have to create students who not only create a job for himself or herself, but create job for 50 others, that's where my purpose is served. So I would go more into capacity building, and that's what we've been doing. We started the IPR facilitation course. We did a course. Our IPR facilitation course was attended by more than 5,200 people, and it went into the not only the startup history as one of the very successful programs, and several people were left out. In fact, around 4,000 people, they submitted regular assignments and attended every session regularly, and we did not even give certificates of successful completion to all those people who did not attend regularly. And we were so cruel in that. I said, nothing doing, because it has to have that, we have to have that quality. If we don't have the quality, then we have not delivered. So somebody who's just registered does not get a certificate. And of course, Mr. Nagarajan himself took the course, and he successfully concluded the course, and he got the certificate. So that was what was IPR facilitation program all about. We came up with the IP policy, and one of the first states for having IP policy for the academia, because we realized that students were doing all kind of innovation at home, in hostel rooms, and that was the first fear they had, that no, we don't want to part away with our idea. So, okay, we said, we give you protection. We went and explored all the policies, and we studied the MIT policy extensively. And I used MIT policy as the basic structure for foundation for my, the good state's IP policy. So capacity building has been one of the mainstays of Gujarat's startup and innovation program. And many people wonder, why is Gujarat top performer for the last 2 years, when you had so many startups in Telangana, you had so many startups in Bangalore? If it is just by the number of startups, then of course Bangalore tops the list. But that's not important. What is important is the kind of support, the institutional support, the framework, and everything that has been done. What I have seen in Bangalore, that it's basically a private sector driven startup movement, where people just, an ecosystem has got built up by the private sector and people, especially the IT sector, and people are now moving in, and it's like a sugar crystal. So it climbs up, builds, and on and on and on and on and on. But here we had to start from scratch, and here we had to do a lot of institutional, take up a lot of institutional activities, a lot of programs to bring it to a stage And that's how we have been able to, in a just short period of about 2.5 to 3 years, we've been able to get more than 600 patents and more than 700 startups from the academia itself. So this is what I consider the most significant achievement. But still, it's just the beginning. We have to tread a long way, and we have to go a long way in the entire process. And I want Ahmedabad to become Bangalore. Why not? And it has all the potential. With all your support, we can always do that. Of course, I've visited most of you. I have not visited Indore and Lucknow, IIMs, but ISC Bangalore was the one. I studied your incubator. And most places, like I've been to Hyderabad, yes, I was there. I went to IIIT, went to T-Hub way back in 2017. So I would not take much time because you have to share your bit. What we are looking at is basically sharing policy suggestions and sharing not only the policy suggestions, but the ways of doing it, so that each of us is having an incubator and each of us is into this. So we are working on the mind to market concept, that what is there in the mind of students should come out to the market through commercial and technical link-ups. And that's what we are working on. So we have launched 4 to 5 kind of challenges, and we have launched an industry program. We have tied up, we have collaborated with already 7 to 8 companies, big companies like ITC, and now we're signing an MOU with BVG also. We have MOU with Bombay Stock Exchange also. So all these things are there. And we are trying to get the ideas of students into the market. So I would like you all to deliberate upon these things. So we learn from each other, and we know that it is a cross-pollination of ideas that leads to development of ideas. So we are here, all set. Your chair, Dr. Himanshu Pandya, is all set to roll. And thank you very much. Thanks for a patient listening.
Thank you so much, Mara, for sharing the basic framework on which the student startup and innovation movement in Gujarat stands. May I now request Professor Himanshu Pandya, Vice Chancellor, Gujarat University and Chief Mentor, IHEP, to share with us.
Good morning, Namaskar. I would second what Madam Anju Sharma just mentioned, that today we are here to listen all these stalwarts, those who have excelled in their own journeys for startup and entrepreneurial activities in their own setups and for the country also. But few things are there in my mind. When we say academia driving student startup, it matters a lot. We may label ourselves as an institute of eminence. We may label ourselves as a central university, state-aided university, private university, no matter what is our status. But then how we are going to address the need of nation, that is very important. And when you say Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need to understand each and every thread of this fabric, how we are going to deliver. And for this, we need to come in network. We need to come in coordination for various aspects. We need to change our mindsets. We need to handhold people, those who are looking for the support. Even if they are not looking for the support, we need to drive them through policy, that how we can, channelize their potential and energy for the future of this country. iHub is envisaged somewhere about 2017, and it was formally formulated just 9 months back. Now we are coming up with a state-of-the-art facility. It's not only incubator, but it's a support system, like Madam mentioned, the whole sort of support system what an entrepreneur or a startup is looking for. Besides that, we have a very much active and clear student startup and innovation policy in the state of Gujarat, where each and every student is encouraged to go for and to opt for the subjects of his interest, no matter what discipline he belongs to. If a medical student wants to undergo dissertation in linguistics, he is most welcome, and we encourage that part, because they need to understand what is there in the pharmacology in our old scripts and literature what we are having. We have experienced during this pandemic that whatever knowledge we have, whatever references and texts and projects we have, it has failed to a level where they can save the lives of humans. So alternative therapy and multiple approaches helps us to sustain and to live on this earth. So that is how the multidisciplinary approaches with intra and interdisciplinary knowledge would help us to evolve with our current practices. And that is how we are encouraging all sort of sectors, whether it's agri sector, whether it's a pharma, whether it's a nutrition, whether it's a cooperation business and international trades and whatnot. Today, what we are going to discuss, I would request the panel to have some ideas on how we can collaborate. Like, if you are Institute of Eminence, let's handhold at least 2-3 universities in the state, those who are public aided and granted institutions, how we can develop a network, how we can frame our curriculum and syllabuses where we can have cross-pollination within the subject and out of the subject. So that is again one of the requests I would like to tell the panel. Besides that, this particular organization, iHub, we would like to call you in person to the premises, but whenever situation gets favorable, and we would be more than happy to have you on our boards of various activities. We have more than 17 programs going on, and for that we would like to have your help and support to encourage our startups in the state. Let me give you some glimpse what we did in this pandemic. In this pandemic, we have empowered and trained more than 10,000 teachers in the state for their IPR practices, how they can protect the IPR of students and their projects in the state of Gujarat. And it was backed by the centrally claimed agencies, those who are empowered to certify the courses. Besides that, more than 15,000 students were roped in for various projects on healthcare, agriculture, and the supply chain and operation research and so many things. This is what we are looking at the iHub, and it's not only, like I told you, it's not only the incubator, but we are promoting, we are funding their projects, we are funding their prototypes, we are making available all sort of financial helps from national and international agencies. So that's all, and I'm really very happy to have you all on our board, and I'll be learning today something how to deliver in the institutions like us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandya. May I now request Dr. Saji Gopinath, Vice Chancellor of Kerala University of Digital Science, Innovation and Technology, who was earlier the head of Kerala Startup Mission and basically from IIM Kozhikode, to share his experience of building the student innovation and startup ecosystem in Kerala and insights for us.
Good morning. Good morning, eminent panel. It's a privilege to be part of this. I believe this is going to be a great learning experience for me. I would primarily like to share some of the things which we did in Kerala startup ecosystem and probably the type of mistakes we did, and learn from all of us how actually when we go further, especially in the whole of the nation, how do we actually move further on this? So some of you may be aware that Kerala was one of the pioneering states in the startup movement, and perhaps the reason which Ms. Sharma has mentioned is very relevant for Kerala also, because as a state, we are never known for industrial growth. We are never known for large industrial hubs, but primarily known for social and other development. So we don't have an industry which is driving the startup ecosystem. So the academia was the first choice for that. So way back in 2012, Kerala came out with a policy for supporting startups and entrepreneurship within colleges, within polytechnics and engineering colleges. And this primarily was by establishing entrepreneurship development clubs, IEDCs, providing grants, providing infrastructure, providing other setting up small TBIs and things like that. And the results was good. We have large number of startups have come from the startup ecosystem, college academia startup ecosystem. Around 80% of Kerala startups was coming from academia ecosystem per se. But in 2017, we actually took a review of that. we actually started looking at whether this is really translated into something really specific. After 5 years of 2012 policy, and then 2014 there was another state startup policy itself, and we found that, and the results were relieving. We found that while the students were very enthusiastic on developing several products while in the college, with the support of faculty, and many times even without that, the success of them to continue further was very low. We had maybe around 1 in 10 or maybe 1 in 20 actually going into the next stage. So there is a high dropout rate after the completion of the college, and they end up over there. And there were IPs getting created, but then sweating of IP was a big challenge. That was not happening, primarily because many of these IPs were at the level of, maybe if you look at the technology readiness level, it may be at the level of 3 or 4. So, but if you look at, when you really want to translate it, it has to be at a much higher level of TR. So in 2017, we actually started looking at this in much more detail and identify what would be the causes of this. And we found that the failure of the startups, when the student startups going into the next stage, is happening at 2 levels. One is there is an early failure, and primarily this is a case with many of the startups, even otherwise, is where there is a strong market product fit is missing. The second thing is there is a challenge of scaling up. So we went into the more detail into each of these reasons, and we found that there are 3 early factors. There are multiple, but for want of time, I will limit it to 3 key factors. We found that the 3 key factors, and I'll little bit expand on each of this. There are 3 things. One is idea. Many times the students work on ideas which they get excited, but not necessarily what market is getting excited about. The second is what Madam has rightly pointed out, the capacity or the knowledge to deliver a product into the market at a level which it compete with the best in the world, because market is not necessarily be very sympathetic to whether a product is coming from a student, startup, or others. The third thing is the involvement of academic institutions. There are few faculty members and champions, but the involvement of academic ecosystem in it is actually not to the extent which it would have been. So these 3 things are what we found as the early failure factors. And I know that many of the institutions from IIC, IIT, Madras, IIT Hyderabad, etc., this is much more. So we need to learn from how that has actually happened in those institutions. And in the scale-up challenges, which are more systemic, which may not be discussed at this stage, but we found that the challenge was that there is a lack of an investment ecosystem which requires you to go into the next stage, because you require a large level of investment there. You also have a case at least in Kerala, where after a student startup sort of mature, it migrate into a bigger hub, maybe to Hyderabad or to Bangalore, because of the ecosystem which is available there. And I think it's a global phenomenon, right? The Canadian startups moves to Valley, or the startup from Ahmedabad may move to Bangalore and or Hyderabad or Bombay or NCR region. So there's a challenge which I think we need to be cognizant about. And third is about lack of accelerators, which takes them into the real level. And there is also an opportunity cost for the students. See, when a student is actually doing something innovative and good at the college level and coming out with something good at that stage, they are actually become the darlings of the recruiters. So the chance of them getting into a job is very fast compared to a person who has not done anything. So there is a challenge of the student whether I should continue with the startup or should I move to a job person. So these things made us found that this is actually a challenge, that we can actually create this culture of innovation, but to sustain that and to make the economic development of a state is a challenge as such. So what we have looked at it at each of these, and we found, as I said, the first challenge was the idea challenge. And the idea challenge, we went and we discussed that many times the students are not really exposed to the real challenges which the industry and the society faces. And that is basically where made an intervention called Demand Days, where various government, it started with government, later it moved to other private sector. Various government departments were asked to bring their challenges which are live problems, and then pose it to the students. And then if a student innovation started, and if it is at least it reaches a early prototype level, then the government will create an innovation zone within the government department where the student and the experts from the government will actually work together. We have some very interesting success stories in utility space, police and few of those areas as well. So demand days was one of the key things which we did. We also did a remote reboot Kerala hackathon after the two ravaged floods in Kerala. We need a substantive amount of changes where we involved students to this reboot Kerala hackathon. And from Kerala Startup Mission, we also did something called a fail fast succeed. We know that a startup fail in the early stage. So we created an accelerated program where we know to see whether their product has got a market fit or not. Now, these are all been launched after 2017. But one good thing is that the failure rate from an MVP to commercialization has drastically reduced. While it was almost around 90% earlier, now it has reduced almost to 30%. But I still have to, we will still have to actually go into the next stage in a bigger way. The second thing which we found is a challenge is the knowledge. They may not have the adequate knowledge to look at, basically they may be looking at the MOOC courses or the various other resources, but you actually require good software support, good hardware support, etc. That's basically where the Fab Labs, the future labs, where the newer technology labs, etc., has become as a common infrastructure, where this actually helped. Plus the business leadership, which is also an important element because business knowledge was a challenge. So that is an element which has helped them to move into more of a level of a sustainability person. The third level is primarily about the involvement of academics. I believe that is the biggest challenge, and I'll not take much time because I think my time is almost over. And we found that there is a paradox in our institutions that faculty do research, they come out with papers, but many times this is not necessarily translated into the startup ecosystem as such. So there was, and when we went into the detail, we found that there is no incubation support for the technologies which are at an early stage to get into the marketable technology, except in some of the national institutions and others. So that is basically where the Kerala now try to create a scheme so that the innovations from the students and innovation from the faculty, which both of them will get incubated. So there may be, it's not necessarily that the incubator and the entrepreneur need to be the same. So there is a sort of a technology transfer and a technology incubation and transfer model is happening. And we have created a statewide platform called Research Innovation Network Kerala, where the research from the various faculty members and academic institutions are actually being put into that. And a support system has been created to ensure that those technologies are at a level where it can actually be translated into the market person. So all these primarily have positive results so far. Our failure rates have substantially reduced. Obviously, the percentage of students startup in the ecosystem also reduced. That's primarily because the ecosystem has grown. Today, we have around 4,100 startups, of which around 1,500 has come from the college student startups. And our student failure rate, that is students developing and not going further, has actually reduced from almost 92% to close to around 32% as on today. So there's a substantive change in that which has happened. But I believe that we will have to go further. And I know that many of the institutions, the experts who are representing here have got ecosystems which has created very impactful startups. And we need to learn how some of them have happened in that space. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to a very vibrant discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Gopinath, thank you for telling how you not only succeeded, but also the learning from failures. And we have been very candid on this aspect. And Honorable Principal Secretary asked us a couple of days before that we have 75 universities in Gujarat, almost 30 incubators. And every quarter we are sourcing learning from failures from each of them, because without knowing that, we can't move ahead. And that's what is one of the key points that we have been focusing. We have now Professor Uday Desai, the founding director of IIT Hyderabad. He has been a wonderful innovation champion himself, and also seen ecosystem in Eastern universities in Japan, in Western context in US, and also build those things in IIT Hyderabad. So Professor, your insights will be wonderful to learn how to go ahead.
So first of all, I'd like to thank Madam Sharma, Professor Pandya, and Sri Mahanta for giving me this opportunity. Being from Gujarat, this is in fact very special to me. So on I'm extremely enthused that iHub has come up in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar area. That's fantastic. At the same time, I feel a little sad that it took so long for it to come up. I mean, Gujarat is the state of entrepreneurs. If you were to predict, it should have come up first in Gujarat and then elsewhere. Because as I used to tell people, you throw a stone and the first person the stone hits most likely is an entrepreneur. That's the situation in Gujarat. So I hope this will in fact promote high-tech entrepreneurship very actively in Gujarat. So what I'll do just to set the tone, and I think this may be preaching to the choir, but I think this is more meant for the audience that is listening to us. And these are some data that I have picked up from NASSCOM. So I'll just quickly rush through it to highlight a couple of points. Okay, we have a large number of startups in India right now, close to 9,000. I won't go through all the details out here, and it is growing roughly like 12 to 15%. Okay, but by the same token, I will share the nice ideas that were thought that were articulated by Dr. Gopinath, that the failure rate is also very, very high. Though we have so very few of them really succeed and go up and become very, very big out here. Okay, I'll briefly mention that. The numbers look very large out here because there is some kind of aggregation, $4.4 billion total funding received by startups in 2019. And one has to look at actually how much cash came in. There are different ways of kind of looking at the funding. So I would say that one should be a little more careful about it. 60,000 new jobs have been created, which is good. And I think what is also more important is almost the 1.3 to 1.8 lakh new indirect jobs that get created for every startup that you have. I won't spend, again, this is kind of a repetition of the previous slide in a different format out here, but the whole thing is growing very, very steadily if you look over the time span. What I wanted to spend a little bit of time is the distribution of startups in different domains out here. And this is something we should keep in mind. You have enterprise, healthcare, health, fintech, something I thought should take off in Gujarat very, very actively, given that GIFT is coming up, and presume that GIFT is moving quite rapidly in Gandhinagar. Okay, EdTech, HR tech, retail, travel and hospitality. Okay, now if I can go through this list, automotive, the automotive comes lower, industrial manufacturing comes lower, mobility comes lower, agri-tech comes lower. So what you find is that this is a little disheartening that deep tech incubators are not as many as non-deep tech. Okay, I think, if you look at Silicon Valley, every incubator in Silicon Valley is a deep tech incubator. Okay, so I think we need to kind of create an ecosystem and work towards it. And this is where the academia interaction is very, very critical. Like the interaction they have there with Stanford and Berkeley is very critical, to create deep tech ecosystem. These are the ones which can have a long lasting impact and can become really a source of pride for all of us. Okay. This was mentioned earlier in terms of hubs. Okay, the T hub came up earlier in Hyderabad, one of the earlier hubs. Today, the hubs are coming up all over the country. Okay, and this is the distribution of hubs. Every major city in the country now has a hub which is promoting startups and innovation out here. Okay, of course, as was mentioned by people, the 58% of startups are in Bangalore, NCR, Mumbai, and even among them, Bangalore is way ahead. Hyderabad probably comes, I think, 6th or 7th. I think Pune also has a large number of startups. Now, let me get to this particular part out here in terms of sharing some of the thoughts. So first of all, as I said, this is a very welcome sign. Okay, but there are a lot of things we need to take care when we're talking about student startups. Fundamental question that many people ask, is that we get carried away by people like Zuckerberg, but there are very few Zuckerbergs in this world. Okay, should the student indulge in a startup or have a startup while he's a student or after just graduation, or should he or she have some amount of experience before they get into startup? This is an open debate. I don't have an unequivocal answer for that. Okay, it's very individualistic thing, but both options should be kept in mind. That is, when you have iHub, I think one should also look at people who come a few years after graduation, because many times they come with a little more mature outlook and it could be more sustainable than a student who is still looking for his space in this particular world after graduation. Another aspect, if you look at in India, most of the startups, and I hope Dr. Gopinath can kind of corroborate, and Dr. Gurumurthy also, he has been doing a lot of it, and IISc Bangalore, are Me Too startups. we look at technologies which are abroad and try to see how it can be adapted and worked. Two biggest ones in India, if you call, Ola. In fact, Ola was started by a former student of mine, Bhavesh Agarwal, and his colleague, both IIT Bombay graduates. It's a Me Too technology. Uber was already there. If you look at Flipkart, again, a Me Too technology, has worked very well, but the mileage that you get is not as much as you were like Amazon. You were the front runner. Okay, so I think we also look at something like a front runner startup, which are very difficult, not that easy. But I think this is where India can make a big mark out here. This requires out-of-box thinking if you want to have a deep tech front runner startup. Okay, because it is not simply emulating what you see in the West. Airbnb is there. There are several startups in India which have emulated Airbnb. Fundamentally, these are aggregated and distribution kind of software packages that one can develop, or the various apps that are there, Swiggy, Zomato, whatever. So those are, it's good. I'm very happy that they are there, but I think we need to move up the value chain now. This requires strong collaboration with research institutes. And what I feel is that sometimes we look at interaction with local research institute. What pandemic has shown is that physical distance is no longer a constraint. I'm sitting in Hyderabad and interacting with you as if I'm in Ahmedabad itself. Okay, we have people from Indore interacting. We have people from Lucknow. I am Lucknow. We have people from Kerala. So if you look at the panel here, it is from all across the country. The physical distance has no meaning. So when you look at collaboration, you can look at collaboration with universities and institutes across the country. It need not necessarily be restricted to Gujarat itself. And I think everybody is doing that. I keep telling it, but sometimes we always feel, no, we'll look at regional thing. And I ask them why. It doesn't really make any sense to me. And this panel is proof that your panel consists of people from a length and breadth of the country. Okay, but collaboration with academia is very, very important, because out-of-box thinking is typically the purview of academia. Okay. And I think this, you have to work hard towards it, because faculty are very skeptical sometimes of these things. Oh, they will steal my ideas, they will run away with my ideas and make money out of it. I will be left high and dry. This is a genuine thing. So you have to work hard to create what one might call a trust factor between, say, the business community, the entrepreneurial community, and the academic community. Today, I think the trust factor is not very strong. It is much better in the US. Okay, there also they face this problem. The second thing I would say is that, in every institution, to create this entrepreneurial system, we need to create what I call maker-breaker lab. Okay. Why I call breaker lab is like, at a youngsters, when they're in the first year, I've been advocating this. If every college has a breaker lab, a lab where you look at equipment like an old refrigerator. When I ask people, how often have you taken a hard disk and taken it apart and see what is in there? All of us are using hard disk. Right, hard disk memory is there all over the place, everywhere, on my laptop, etc., except cell phone. Cell phone has solid state memory only. This has both. How many students or how many people have really seen what is inside? We might have seen pictures in Google, but there are so many junk hard disks. Any kabadi wala will give you hard disk today, and you just need to split it open. Okay. So I think we need to create that culture where students, which at a very young age, in the very first year, have a lab where the only job is to break open things, refrigerators, microwave ovens, cameras, buy junk stuff. I'm not thinking to buy brand new things, and I can list a whole bunch of gadgets, and just study as to what is happening in there, rather than a professor lecturing saying that, oh, this is how a microwave oven runs, and these are the principles. Yes, those are important. But finally, I need, and breaking is a lot of fun. I can tell you at that age, when you are 16, 17, it could even be done in schools, perhaps at a certain level. It's a fun thing that youngsters enjoy. And then you have a maker lab as a follow-up to that, where you start building things. There are various maker lab models which are there. I think Atal Innovation Lab have been set up in many, many places, but we need to go much more beyond that. Those are like the maker labs, and I think government has taken a very big step in it. That is one thing which I would say, that you need to create this, See, we need to have a culture where if you look at in the olden days, there were a large number of people who got into small mechanical engineering shops. People would buy a lathe machine, people would buy maybe a drilling machine, a hacksaw, things like that. And you go as in Gujarat, and I think in Punjab also I've seen job karne ka hai. That is, you go with a job. I need this particular part to be manufactured, which I need in my basic thing that I'm developing, and the guy will do it in 3 days and give you that part. Now, we have not created that ecosystem in electronics and things like that, partly because people don't have exposure to working with such things when they are very young. So the Maker Lab is a very crucial thing, does not cost very much, a little bit of investment is there. And I would put it almost that it's a must, where people fiddle with it. Then I already mentioned about faculty collaboration and student collaboration. The other part which I find many times we get bogged down is equity holding. Okay, how much equity should iHub hold? It's a problem also if you look at incubators in India like Sign in Bombay or whatever in IIT Madras, IIT Hyderabad also. My philosophy when I started the incubator in IIT Hyderabad is that hold very little equity. Don't worry about that. I think generating goodwill by the university is very, very important. The classic example is Google came out of Stanford. And I remember when I first used Google, the URL was Stanford University. This was, I think, way back in 99 or 2000 or something like that. Okay, long time ago. Google had not yet become a company. Stanford does not own a single share of Google. But Stanford has so much goodwill with Google that if they need maybe 10, 20, $30 million, all they need to do is make a phone call to Sergey Brin or Larry Page. I think that is something we should keep in mind. I've seen many incubators, 13%, 5%. I'm a baniya, but then I tell them, Baba, leave that to me. Don't get into this sort of a thing. So I think, look at it from a different perspective that we are doing something long term, then worry about it. Encourage patenting. Okay, I think that culture has not come into the country as yet. We have patents. Okay, I think we have to start off. There may be small value patent, doesn't matter, but that culture is not there. Academia likes to publish. Why? Because when you come up for promotion from assistant to associate, associate to full, it is publications that matter. What is the citation? What is H-index? Google citation, etc. I think we need to create a culture where we say that patenting also will be counted. Product development will be counted towards your promotion. It is very hard. I tried to some extent in IIT Hyderabad, but it is not that easy. The old traditions, old habits don't die that easily. But I think if all of us collectively work together, we can create that culture. And you can see the difference between MIT and Stanford. MIT is much more scholarly in nature. Stanford is much more entrepreneurial in nature. You walk on Stanford campus, it is like everybody talks about startups. And MIT campus has some very different culture. Okay. So I said you have very liberal patent. Also, when the patent is there, who owns the patent? Now, typically it will say IIT will own the patent. You are the inventor. Now, if I have a startup as a faculty or student, I am obligated to IIT now whether how will IIT license that patent to me. So when the investor comes, he says, oh, you don't own the patent, IIT owns. Whoops, let's think about it twice. Okay. So maybe we should change the rule and let the faculty own the patent. I know, and maybe some understanding can be there, that part of it when it comes. So let the 80% patent rights could be with the faculty, only 20% patent rights with the university. We need to change things around. We talk about out-of-box thinking for development. Academia also needs to think out of box, and they cannot think in a traditional manner. So that's one thing. Then one thing we did at IIT Hyderabad, in some sense, to encourage. We have, what all you are doing, various executive courses and other things you're having. What I did was to start a minor in entrepreneurship for all students. It didn't matter whether you were first year, second year, third year, PhD, whoever was interested. I'll just quickly flash it. This is the program we used to have, each one of 1 credit. Okay, but the key USP of this particular program are not the courses. Many management institutes will offer some of these courses, but not a single course is taught by a professor. Neither a management professor nor an engineering professor. All the courses are taught by people who themselves have been entrepreneurs. They are venture capitalists, okay, or they are startups. So if you look at, say, Ajay Chaudhary, who taught the course on Introduction to Entrepreneurship. Okay, I'll take a few minutes on this just to emphasize. He is one of the co-founders of HCL. He happened to be the chairman board of governors. I may be the only director who convinced chairman board of governors to teach a course at the institute. And he actually taught, and he was very popular, by the way. Okay, so then you look at, say, people like BVR Mohan Reddy. You go down, number 8, HR and leadership. He was the next chairman of IIT Hyderabad Board of Governors. He runs a company called Cyient. Many might have heard of it. It's one of the engineering software company, not simply IT software. He teaches the course at IIT Hyderabad. People like Shantanu Paul, they have a startup, educational startup. He teaches the course. People like, if I look at Satish Andhra, I think he may be there somewhere in here. He runs a venture company in the city. Now, of course, these people don't do it regularly. Okay. They will do it for 1 or 2 times. They'll say, so what I did was I had a pool of something like 30, 40 people. So if Satish Andhra said, like item number 4, business plan, Satish Andhra and Srini Adapalli. Then Satish said, look, I've done it twice. I can't do it more. I have my work. Then I said, okay, you find somebody. Okay. So he got then, I think, a person called Rimpal. Okay. Rimpal Chawla. He came and taught it. So there is a whole ecosystem where you have a chain. Okay. You can't come, ask your friend. Okay. He will come. And then you create a system that if somebody is not available, that semester you get somebody else. The idea being is you have this course taught by people who have burned their fingers, who have dirtied their fingers, not simply people who teach from textbooks. That was my main motivation out here. And I think there are people, they like to do it, not year after year after year. They will do it maybe for 2 years. And if you notice, these are modules. Each module is about 14 hours, except the business plan development, which is a 42-hour module, 3 credits. Okay. Sorry for taking a little extra time on this, but I thought, I'm not sure how the new director is going with it, but this became very successful, by the way. Then venture funding. Okay, I think I've been talking about this and this has not happened. I think maybe the state of Gujarat can do it. After all, if there is one state which is known for taking risks, it is Gujarat. Okay, you can think of starting a risk fund. Okay, it's a startup fund, and what I've seen is across the world, except for Silicon Valley, everybody has a government risk fund. I've seen it in Australia, I've seen it in Canada, I've seen it in UK. Silicon Valley is a very, very different ecosystem. Okay, obviously. So I think this has to be thought of. I would really ask Madam Anju Sharma, because government comes in and she will have some ideas on it. I don't have full idea, but unless we do that, because in India, we don't get too many people, I keep joking, and don't get me wrong out here. We will rather give money to a temple than to a startup. Okay. This is, my kith and kin. So I'm not going any far out here. Okay. So I think we need to kind of think about this part, The other part I would say is get VCs associated, have a network of VC. For example, Delhi has the Delhi Angels, a very strong group. Hyderabad has Hyderabad Angels, Bangalore has it, I think. Even there is some angel group in Bombay. In Gujarat also, I think you need to create this angel group. These are small funders. Okay. And I'm sure there are many Gujaratis out there, who have enough money. And money, there's no dearth of money in Gujarat in principle. Okay. And one can look at that. So you create this group of angels, many will come forward. And the hub people should meet these angels periodically, because angels will tell them, look, what you're doing is good, but hey, this is not going to sell in the market. Okay, that's something the angels know much better. Go global. There's a strong Gujarati diaspora in Silicon Valley, in the US. Try to network with them. I'll give an example. Rajesh Mashruwala, IIT Bombay graduate, of course, a Bombay Gujarati. He lives in US. He came forward and started and gave $1 million, and along with a colleague of his, another $2 million totally, Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship. He said, I want to focus only on healthcare. So he's literally funding that particular part. So there are many such people out there. Some of them are billionaires, people like Bharat Desai, who had this, I'm forgetting his company, right now, name. He's a multi-billionaire. There are many like that. I think if iHub can target them, cultivate the relationship, A, they will give a lot of mentorship, which will be international mentorship. And B, they can even get you in touch, give funding to iHub to encourage entrepreneurship. See, there is always this longing, look, I've been in US, I'm 60, 65, I want to give back to my country and sometimes to my state also. The other part which I think, and this is something I want to emphasize, is ease of doing business. India is not the good place for doing business. Whenever I talk to any VC internationally, people like Kanwal Rekhi, Kanwal says, I will not invest in India unless you are registered either in Silicon Valley or Delaware or Singapore. It's very difficult to do because this is your rules and regulations. I can't even understand them, first of all. There are too complex and too many. Okay. Even ease of exit. If you have a company, exiting is very complicated in India. Silicon Valley has mastered the art of starting a company and exiting a company. They can do it literally overnight. This is my last slide, I think. Product design, I'll leave it at that. The last part is sales and marketing. You already mentioned that, so I won't kind of spend time. I'll stop here. I took a little more than my time. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful ideas and insights. In fact, the ideas that you mentioned about how Gujarat could leverage the diaspora and the ecosystem would be of real interest. And the minor courses, actually, we took some interventions with Professor Himanshu Pandya at Gujarat University and other places also. So some experiences for sure, but yes, the idea of bringing hands-on entrepreneurs to teach those programs like Ajay Chaudhary and others is something that could be looked into. And these are ideas worth looking forward. So I think, sir, this is a wonderful suggestion. Thank you so much for sharing. May I now request Professor Anadi Saran Pandey, Professor of Strategic Management, IIM Lucknow, and Faculty in charge and Director for IIM Lucknow Enterprise Center, Entrepreneurship Incubation Center to share.
Okay, thank you very much to Anju Sharma ma'am and to Professor Pandya and to you for having me on this very esteemed panel. Whatever I have to say is possibly going to reinforce the content that the panelists before me have so very brought forward through the wisdom of their having been involved in the same space. There are two thoughts that I have with which I wish to begin, and then I thought it may be worthwhile for me to share my experience at a more microcosm level and draw some learnings out of it, so that these could possibly help shape the policy of how incubation happens. The two foremost thoughts that come to my mind of why India needs incubation. The first is what we teach in our core courses in strategic management at IIM. And being a professor of strategy, obviously I have to, exemplify. I'm sure I don't have time to do that, but the theory of institutional voids, as an emerging economy, unlike the Silicon Valley that we wish to replicate, the institutional context that we wish to build so that we may one day have multiple Silicon Valleys across our country, that change from previous institutions to new institutions, which is nothing but on the softer end, the culture, on the harder end, the regulations that Professor Desai talked about, it takes decades. And therefore, that incubation becomes an imperative which we cannot deny, irrespective of whether we are creating hubs or whatever we are doing. So incubation is a fundamental entity, an institution that becomes a market maker, such that great ideas that people at large in India and people across the country are entrepreneurial. They may actually find, so that's one thought that I have of the theory of institutional voids. The second is, which is something that Professor Gurumurthy and Professor Desai both brought out, which is about experience. And I'll begin, I have just 4 slides which I put together. And so I'll bring that thought out, and then I'll go into sharing my experience. Well, so one thing that we did, we took up our angel invest, we created a company, a not-for-profit company, and being a professor of strategy, we set ourselves, so don't bother about the next set of it, but the vision was to be trustees of innovation and entrepreneurship in service of humanity. So that's a very lofty ideal. But that's the way we are, and we measure our success on just 2 parameters. One is how many jobs we create, and the second is how much wealth we create. And there's no third parameter by which we measure our success. But most importantly, this is the broader thought. One of the failures, whether it is the failures of businesses or the failure of academic institutions, which the NEP is attempting to set right, and which is again brought out by my erstwhile presenters, is the inability to join academic world with the world of business. One deals with conceptual knowledge, the other deals with the practices. Their focus is solving day-to-day problems, whereas the other is building theories which are generic. So therefore, the incubation process becomes so eminently important. Because I see that this is one where the incubator becomes a lab for students and various entrepreneurs across the length and breadth of humanity. I'm not even talking about nation or region. I'm saying anybody and everybody. And so it becomes a lab for us to not only test our theories, but to actually build knowledge so that the theory may get reinforced and that knowledge may help the incubated startups to be successful. So with that broad theme introduction, I'll go ahead and share just 3 slides of our experience. One is this, and to my mind, this is so important. When we talk about incubation, shall it be a center? Shall it be a standard model incubator, right? Or shall it actually be something that we call in the theory which is already developed, the theory of innovation, entrepreneurship, of ambidexterity? What does that mean essentially? It means you look at our structure, and we took a lot of effort, and we are one of the later entrants in incubation. But let me say that we've been able to create wealth at the rate of 33% per annum. We've had 3 failures, but we have 15 successful startups which are creating phenomenal amount of wealth. We've been able to create about 400 odd jobs in the last 2.5 years. So what is it that I wish to leave behind with this panel on our experience with this structural issue? So let's say we build an incubator in an academic institution to facilitate the process of incubation. Now, the problem with academic institutions are they're very protocol and very rule driven. That is very good for efficiency. It creates phenomenal amount of effectiveness in generating the purpose for which they have been created, but that can be a best destroyer of innovation and entrepreneurship, right? So which Professor Uday also brought out in his discussions. But the incubator is about exploration, about innovation. So why this structure? This has been celebrated structure, and we look at it in our courses in strategy. You look at the structure, the advantage of this. The advantage is that as a private company, we've created this. That gives us phenomenal amount of flexibility, which is not constrained by the regulations of the constitution or legislature. So you allow a wonderful idea to die unsupported, well, you can never revive it. And you cannot allow procedures and protocols to intervene in creating that infrastructure and support and taking decisions. And therefore, this structure, which is now deeply embedded in the theory of how we create intrapreneurship, so we've created this. So this is an independent company. It's a private company with its own BOD. But how does it derive benefit from here? There have to be linkages. So we've been able to do this very effectively. That's one structural mechanism. When we talk about strategy of incubation or strategy of building entrepreneurship, any textbook tells us that the first thing you've got to do is structure, and then you've got to talk about systems. So here I am talking to you about the structure of how, as an academic institution, our experiment with the structural mechanism to facilitate incubation has given success and is highly aligned to the theories thereof. Of course, this is our model of incubation that we put in place. Right. So, of course, there can be virtual incubation. There is a physical infrastructure. This slide shows us the physical infrastructure. Obviously, as a management institution, we can't boast of biotech labs. We can't boast of, but what we can do is we can support industry 4.0. We are deep into AI, right? So a lot of my companies are the first time Indian technology creators. Right? They are exporting. They are doing very well. We've been able to create an AI lab, which basically for 3D printing and AI and stuff. And most importantly, we found that the fact that we give them just this much is not good enough. The enterprises fail for want of support, which they've never had. For instance, legal, accounting, how to file patents. I heard Madam Manju Sharma and Professor Himanshu Pandya talk about using this COVID period to train hundreds and thousands of people on filing a patent. But filing a patent is still a very engaging, involved, expensive process. So how can we go about? So what have we done is we've created a business services system where economies of scale have come, right? So all my startups are supported through the incubation process with this, because for me to hire these services is far easier because I spread them thin across all startups. And of course, as we all believe, the institutional void in India is of investment. How do we assess risk? So financial capital becomes a big deal. And the solution we found is by tapping into existing angel networks, tapping into alumni networks, and building a website that facilitates registration of angels and ensuring that somehow we become very exciting, and we train our startups to do pitches. Training and mentoring is fundamental. Go to market strategy, how to scale up, when to professionalize, when to give up control as entrepreneurs, and pass on controls to professionals. Often I've found, and the literature talks about failures. Out of the failures, one of the biggest failures of startups is the entrepreneurial mindset can become a failure. So you can be in entrepreneurial mode, you can be in growth mode, but you have to transit to professional mode. You've got to give up some control, don't you? And therefore, that becomes the other management training and guidance that we give them. And of course, hiring and stuff is a big deal. So we provide them this kind of support. So capability building within the incubation, so that we may replicate the voids that the environment gives us. So we are that institution which is becoming a market maker. I hope that in a couple of decades, India will eliminate some of these institutional voids, and we will no longer need the incubators as we need them today. But today, you cannot eliminate incubator to facilitate startups. That's for sure. Lastly, where will the capital come from? Shall we always be on public funds, or shall we become self-sustaining, right? So therefore, the model that we've created, we receive some amount of DST funds, which are all right, they're helping us, but DST will not support us for all the time in future. And this is my last slide. So what did we do? We decided to augment our resources, because we bring intellectual capital of how to create startups, so we are today signed alliances with a lot of companies that are creating a lot of wealth, but have created a venture fund to create ventures. So we do a huge amount of consulting for us, and I'm happy to report that this model, which we put in place just a couple of years back, is giving us enough resources to now be on our own, right? And continue to, of course, equity in these startups will give us capital so that we may continue to be fulfilling our objective of supporting startups. So that is here. But today we need short-term revenues to survive, to pay our salaries. So consulting and advisory, training, we have a grant coming from DST, but it is progressively reducing, and in 2 years it will be gone. And we do charge a fee for office space, and we've taken nothing more than that from the parent institution. And yes, we do take about 3 to 5% equity from our startups, and we do create a drag-on clause so that when we need the funds, we can they're constrained to buy it out in the next round of their valuation, so that we may create a corpus. And that's where we are building our capabilities. In fact, while I speak to you, there are already startups lined up for pitching, and we have a jury that we will be selecting some of these and then putting them up to angel investor networks for funding. So that's the way we've started. And I'm happy to report that we are filing a lot of patents. And if there is, I feel that these two models could be models of from where we could borrow, to how academia can sort of support this one. And so with those few thoughts, thank you for giving me your patience here. That's all that I have to say, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pandey, for laying out the framework of building the institutional framework of incubating ideas from mind to market. It's very important. Many often we lose these simple interventions, and then the trajectory goes in a very different orbit altogether. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Certainly, as I can see, Professor Himanshu Pandey has mentioned that if we could put all these ideas in practice, the spirit is there, but how do we implement these things in practice is something, a challenging phenomenon that we should look for. We also have Dr. Himanshu Rai, Director and Indore. He himself is an innovator. in system level. When the CAT was introduced in a new mode, he was the person who did that with utmost sincerity in a very, very innovative way and took it to next stage. So, Professor Himanshu Rai, I would request you to guide us.
Thank you so much, Hiradben. A very good morning to everyone out here. Now, I'm going to talk about 4 things. And since I'm assuming that we have a lot of students as well out there amongst the participants who possibly want to have their own startups, I'll be talking both to the students and to the world of academia together on those 4 points. So the first thing, according to me, what is required for anyone who wishes to get into an entrepreneurial venture is purpose. You need to have your purpose very, very clearly defined. What is your vision? What is it that you really want to do? Where is it that you're headed? Because many a times people think that they have a great idea, they start working on that great idea, but then subsequently when the reality sets in and when the angel funds come in, they suddenly move away from what they had initially begun. I mean, I am an advisor to 3 of the startups. One of the startup went awry simply because they started pandering to the wishes which were made by people who were funding the particular startup, and suddenly what they had started with went completely way off. And therefore, you need to have that very strong sense of purpose. Simultaneously, the academic institutions, they should have a very strong sense of purpose. They should have it in their mission statement as to how are they actually going to promote the entrepreneurial mindset. How are they going to promote something that will create an Atmanirbhar Bharat? For example, at the IIM Indore, we did 2 things. One of the things that Anju spoke about was that capacity building is an extremely important part. So what we did was that we converted our incubator into a Section 8 company. And now that gives us more leeway. We get more space. We can also put in some seed money, which hopefully my board will approve very, very soon. And then we can provide more space and mentorship to the incubatees over here. So that was the first part. The second thing, what we did was we started something called the entrepreneurship track in our PGP program itself. And again, you learn from your mistakes. So one of the things that we did was we said that if you want to become an entrepreneur in the second year, you will have to do only half the credits, which are required otherwise in our MBA program. For the other half, the evaluation is going to happen on the basis of the startup that you have. And we are going to figure out as to how we are going to evaluate you, so on and so forth. But the condition is that you have to opt out of the placement system. Now, we got very few people who were interested in that simply because placement apparently seems to be a very important thing so far as MBA students at IIMs are concerned. And therefore, when I came in, I changed it. I said, look, we are going to make you opt out of the placement system for 2 years. But if in the 2 years your startup doesn't work, or if you think you're not interested anymore, we bring you back into the placement system. And then we provide you placement. And this has actually enthused the students to take more risks. So this is so far as our own mission statement is concerned, because IIM Indore says in its mission statement that it's going to be contextually relevant. And the third element of this, what we started was a training program. We started a general management program for executives. And this was targeted mainly at the startups as well as the MSMEs in Indore and the nearby regions. So therefore, what I said is that the sense of purpose that an individual needs to have, a startup individual, the same sense of purpose has to be translated into an institutional setup. The second thing is passion. You need to be passionate about whatever idea it is that you have. That idea should consume you completely. You should be the happiest when you're spending your time thinking on that particular idea. So as I said, that I am, for example, if you ask me what am I passionate about, I always say that, don't introduce me as the director of IIM Indore, because if you really ask me who am I say I'm a teacher, or I say I'm a mountaineer, because those are the 2 things that I'm really passionate about. And because I'm passionate about teaching, and in particular teaching negotiation, I had come up with 2 different ways of teaching negotiation. One was where I would take all my students actually to a mall after making them create a painting. And then I would ask them to sell that painting in a mall. Now, not only did it give them a practical experience, but some of them suddenly realized that probably their paintings were so good that they can get into the business of painting. And they started something on those lines. And therefore, one of the things that I always keep telling people is find out what are you passionate about. And to encourage that in our own campus, what we did was we have allowed students to run all the ventures that are in the campus, be it the food courts, be it the laundry service, be it even starting a puchka stall. We allow students, we give them space without obviously charging them anything. And then the students themselves run the business, and then they keep selling the business to the subsequent batches. So by actually allowing them to convert their passion into some kind of an idea, we are trying to create a kind of an ecosystem, which is going to, I am assuming, a long way in whatever it is that we are doing. The third element is that of compassion. Now, one of the things that I realized was, if I look at Madhya Pradesh, for example, we have 264,000 MSMEs in Madhya Pradesh. Of them, 90% are micro enterprises, 90%. And therefore, if we want to create a startup ecosystem, we cannot ignore this 90%. And therefore, we have to also try and promote and encourage startups which actually address the issues that these 90% face. So we did three things. One is that we created something called a rural engagement program. So all our students, for a week, they go and live in the villages across Madhya Pradesh. They try to find out what are the problems that those villagers are facing, and then they try to provide solutions. Those solutions themselves lead to something like a good social entrepreneurship system. Secondly, we try to look at the environment, because according to me, compassionate means not just being compassionate about human beings, but about nature itself. We try to look at environment, and then we try to promote those kind of ideas which help us in the conservation processes. So my students, for example, created some kind of thing on a tap which reduced the water consumption in our pilot project by 50%. And now we are implementing that throughout the campus, so that throughout the campus, possibly, our water consumption will reduce by about 50%. So therefore, by looking at this micro-entrepreneurial or the social entrepreneurship process, we create a very different kind of an ecosystem. Then we started something called the financial literacy workshop for women from the disadvantaged section of the society. And we did it in three parts. In the first part, we simply told them how to create a budget, how to create an income and expenditure statement for themselves. In the second part, we helped them in collating all the loans that they had taken from the village money lender and converting it to a bank loan. And then the third stage, whenever we found an entrepreneurial streak in any of those women, we actually handheld them in getting access to the government schemes and starting their own entrepreneurial ventures. So as an academic institution, I think we can do much more, provided we keep our hearts and our minds open. And then finally, the last thing that I always speak about is partnership. Now, Himanshu spoke about partnership, and I'm a firm believer that if you actually partner with institutions, with other institutions, he spoke about the other universities. In fact, last year, Himanshu and I, we signed an agreement, and I was telling Himanshu that, Himanshu and Himanshu become Himanshu Square. Because when IIM Indore signed a partnership with Gujarat University, now he has some amazing experimental setups out there. He has some amazing laboratories out there, which we do not have. Likewise, we signed an MOU with IIT Indore. I mean, imagine, we have had an IIT and IIM. Indore is the only city which has both. And till this year, in fact, we had never interacted with each other in terms of creating an ecosystem. And now we have created an ecosystem where we will have joint incubation. So anybody who wants to try out the technological aspect goes to IIT. And whenever they need the mentorship and the management aspect, they come to us. And therefore, I think we need to create far many of such arrangements where we build on each other's capabilities, build on each other's strengths, and then help the starters to prosper. And finally, my last word to everyone, all of this, you may have a purpose, you may have the passion, you may have a partnership, all of it will come to a naught if you're not persistent. You have to persevere. Perseverance is the key. उद्यमेन ही सिद्ध्यन्ति कार्याणि न मनोरथैः नहि सुप्तस्य सिंहस्य प्रविशन्ति मुखे मृगा. I mean, if all you do is dream and not work very, very hard, none of it is ever going to see the light of the day. So to all the people out there who want to initiate a startup, I can assure you on behalf of this very, very illustrious panel that we are here to handhold, we are here to support you. Come up with an idea, come up with a passion, make sure that you're willing to persevere, and we will walk with you the extra mile. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Himanshu Rai, for guiding us. And as you rightly mentioned, intra, whatever the collaborations and how do we, and also you mentioned about technology school collaborating with management institutions. And I think this intersection plays a very vital role. And that's what we are trying to do in Gujarat also. All the 75 universities, we are figuring out how an interface can be created systematically. And Professor Rai, as you mentioned, we are not trying to make this ecosystem building everywhere for next 2 years or 5 years. We're going to make it for 20 years. So we want to have a long-term approach of building the ecosystem. And all of your experiences, maybe Professor Desai's comment, Professor Anari's framework, or your insights are really, really helpful to take this movement forward. We have with us Professor B. Gurumurthy, Professor and CEO of Society for Innovation and Development at IISc Bangalore. Professor Gurumurthy has been a veteran in this domain. Particularly as Professor Desai told, the deep technology incubation, deep technology entrepreneurship, he has done a phenomenal job of taking translational research and deep technology from IISc to market. So Professor Gurumurthy, please guide us.
Thank you, Mahanta. I must also thank Ms. Sanju Sharma and Professor Pandya for having me on this event. It's a privilege to be here and to share our experiences. Let me just share my screen, and hopefully my slides will allow me to keep time as well. So confirm if you're able to see that. Yeah, that's what I want to focus on. I just added the caption student-led deep science startups, and there's a little bit of an anticlimax here, but let me start with what we believe is deep science, because tech companies and high tech has been very misused over the years. So basically our simple distinction of a deep tech or a deep science company is the offering itself is based on science or technology. And I think that's the key distinction, right? And because it will be usually based on some breakthrough, that has come out from a scientific or a engineering innovation, and it addresses typically, what are important societal and, environmental challenges. And the biggest USP why we should look at these deep science, deep tech startups is that, because it is based on some underlying know-how or IP, which is unique, to the founders who have started the company, they have a fairly longer runway, which they actually need, to make a mark. And because it makes deep societal impact, the impact is even greater. And of course, it is not in one field like IT, but it spreads across the spectrum of all fields that human endeavor is involved in, from health to materials, manufacturing, everything in between. So, what should the incubator do then, if they want to nurture this whole deep science, deep technology based startups? So one of the first things is that, we have to be patient, right? These are not companies that are going to fructify in 1 year, 2 years, not even 3 years, right? You will see results only, post 5 years, 6 years. There may be instances where this happens sooner, right? But typically the gestation is much longer, and therefore, the resilience that is required on the part of both the founders of the company as well as the incubator is much more, and this is a very important thing. And I think earlier speakers, Professor Desai, had made this remark that it is therefore makes sense to be associated with an academic environment, either an institution or a research lab, primarily because, the research, the know-how is there, right? And more than that, the third item here, which is the facilities. Faculty in some of these institutions have created amazing facilities for doing really advanced research. And it turns out that those same facilities can give a unique advantage to the startups by using these facilities for either characterization, for analysis, for prototyping, even for simulation, right? And therefore that cohabitation is very, very important. And the last one here, and I will repeat this again in a subsequent slide, is this technical come business guidance that was alluded to in the previous talk. I think that also happens in an academic environment, through faculty inside the campus and the alumni who have gone outside the campus. So based on this, I just wanted to share, sort of a crude model that we have, and it's not any novel thing here. Most people would have come to this over time, but I just wanted to put it in one place, right? So the startup is of course at the center of the thing, but there are these four corners of the four sides to this. Let me start with the left one, which is what the academic institution or the academic entity brings in, right? They bring in know-how, IP, that's very important. They also should provide infrastructure, and I alluded to this infrastructure in the previous slide. Space and some prototyping facilities everybody has talked about, but for doing deep science startups you need much more. You cannot buy an SEM just for a startup. SEM should be there, and startups should be able to use it whenever they need it. Maybe over time even start paying for it, but that facility should be there, right? Equity, yes, people have debated about this, but our view is that taking equity in the startups, however reluctant they may be to give the equity to the academic incubator, it's also a protection for them. Quite often the VCs complain about the equity academic institutions have is because they can't push them around them, because they have somebody big. Not that the institution is going to go and fight with these VCs, but just the fact that they are there behind them gives them some gravitas, which is quite useful in negotiations and discussions and interactions, right? It gives them the gravity that is required to engage with these people. So I think we should support that, and there must be a mechanism for that. If I come to the right edge, there needs human support resources, faculty as technical advisors, to provide them know-how, etc. Students actually form a real lifeblood because they can go and intern in these companies, and quite often that the energy they bring and the freshness and the fearlessness they bring helps the startups also, right? The alumni, I'm going to come back to that. I have a separate slide for that, but they are a key partner in this whole thing. And of course, the incubator itself must have a core operations support, in terms of the mundane things that a startup has to go through. The bottom edge then is, of course, partners, right? People have already talked about this. These can be clinical testing organizations, these can be business schools, these can be funding agencies, investors, all of that, right? The testing labs. So they all come here, and it's the incubator's job to sort of keep this supply chain, sort of well-oiled and smoothened out, so that whenever a startup needs that, they can make this available to them. Then, of course, we come to the top, and that's the sort of the real, challenge that deep science startups face, which is funding, right? Typically, the kind of monies that these companies need, and the period over which they need these monies are much larger. And therefore, there is a very acute need for making sure that there is a tap, that is available. And we are trying to sort of do this through creating a fund, right? And of course, the sources, Professor Desai mentioned, and some of the other speakers also mentioned, alumni, high net worth individuals who have, some shared interests in nurturing this kind of activity. But this funding is very important, because to put up a startup which is in deep science or deep technology in front of an investor very early is a kiss of death for them. Unless they have the product which is possibly validated as well, it doesn't make sense for them to go in front of either customer or investors. And therefore, it is important that the incubator has the resources to nurture them through this period, which means funding to the levels of crore to about 5 crores. And that's the kind of funding that must be made available, and therefore this became a very huge challenge for incubators. Let me come to alumni, right? They're a very key part, and I'm sure all of you would have realized it by now and you would have taken steps, but let me just put it in here, right? That alumni go out and they make a mark in the global world, right? They have done everything that we think the startups should do, in different roles. And it makes sense to sort of tap into that rich resource. And it makes it easy because they also have a deep commitment, to their alma mater, and they want to also, assist in this. Being in Bangalore helps, but I'm sure this is true everywhere. In these times, location is not a constraint at all. And the main thing is that, alumni have a shared history with the founders, right? If they are from your own university, they have a shared history, but it is tempered with real world experience, both in translating technology, the business side of things, and therefore, and the market facing experiences. And therefore it makes sense to tap into the world of alumni. And of course, a lot of them have made money. And so it makes, sense to touch them for money as well. But this help itself is worth its weight in gold. So our view on student-led startups, it's a little different. We don't encourage, doing it while they are students. And of course, it helps that we don't have a large undergraduate program, and so their stay here is for 2 years. If they are master's students, and PhD, is of course 4, 5, 6 years. That's longer, right? But we still sort of counsel them to graduate first, right? And the reason is that, if they are going to be a science or a technology-driven company, right, then it makes sense for them to use their, stay here as a student to do the, technology development, the pre-incubation part of things as a student, right, as part of their thesis. Provided, of course, it meets the other guidelines and expectations of a thesis, it makes sense for them to, fine-tune that rather than, start a company and then do it on company time. It doesn't make sense at all. Right. And we believe that, people will buy this idea that it makes sense to do this, because if you see our portfolio today, about 1/3 is, alumni or fresh graduates, people who have finished a degree and then they have wanted to start a company. So that's our view insofar as, student participation in startups is concerned. I just wanted to put a snapshot here. Stem Cell is the name of our incubator. It is a fond hope on our part that, much like the biological entity, our incubator also, anybody who comes here will grow. So, that's the, hope in which we have named it. But these companies, these 4 companies that I have listed here, right, they are all started by students. Bellatrix, these were students fresh out of college in Coimbatore. They are not our alumni. They just came out of college, but they had this very fancy technology that they had done as part of a project, in their BE days. And this was this electrothermal thruster, based on microwaves, using microwaves. And now, we have incubated them and they have become a robust company. They have contracts from ISRO. So, that is there. Pathshod is a PhD student who, with his advisor, started this company. Grasp Bionics is a company in implants space and, prosthetics space. These were started by 2 of our design students. Again, this was their master's project, and that became a company. Astrome is a slightly different example. These were students who went out, did other things, and then came back and wanted to start a company in this space. And that's how they are. So the point I'm making is that, it makes sense to sort of not, try and be a dropout. There are very famous dropouts, but then if you look at the numbers, right, that is, they will anyway drop out. Nobody can stop them from being successful, but it doesn't work for everybody. Much like cricket, right? Including IPL, there's only so many cricketers who can make their mark, So you have to be very careful that, how you make this decision. So we would encourage them to finish their degree. So one thing we do to sort of, further support the fact that students should go through a process, to get into this whole game of science-led startups is this Entrepreneurs in Residence program. We are sort of offering it as an alternate to postdoctoral fellows. So our bias is towards PhD students at this point in time, but this may also apply to students at other levels as well, right? Much like, students who want to go into academia, go for a postdoctoral fellowship. We believe that those who think that they can do entrepreneurship should do Entrepreneurs in Residence. We support them for a period of time through both financial resources to themselves as an individual, as well as, for developing their science or their technology that they have done as part of their thesis. And the idea is that at the end of the period, which is typically 1 year, right, they are convinced that they can pursue this, and they can convince us that they can pursue this, right? And then, we continue the path of the incubation. So this is something that we have started. Some entrepreneurs are already there in this process, and we are hoping that we can grow the funnel as we go forward, and run this well. I just want to leave you with one other type of engagement that students can have, which can take them to the path of innovation, which is, getting them to engage with the SME sector through projects, right? And the idea here is that, we provide technology upgradation for SMEs, but through student projects in collaboration with the SME partner, right? And we have packaged a couple of courses with a summer internship in the SME in between for new product development that is of value to the startup itself, right? So we've been doing this for the last 3 years now, and there are several ones, but the one that is circled is the one that I'm going to talk about next. This is and the chain on the top shows you the numbers. So it is lucrative and there is interest. Companies are interested, and students are also interested, and so hopefully we can sustain this. Let me talk about this because this is an interesting and very encouraging thing for us. This was a company that used to do white label manufacturing of solid state relays, for multinational companies and Indian companies, right? So they came to us, and as part of the project, we identified a platform product for them, which is a smart controller based on their own relays, right? And the students actually did an implementation of this for controlling a polyhouse, a fully instrumented polyhouse, humidity, moisture, light, and fertigation, all controlled by the single, device that you see in the middle of the screen, right? But the nice thing is why this is good for the company is that it is actually a platform product, because they can use this in manufacturing for controlling, say, electrocoating plant, or in food things where they can use to control furnaces in bakeries, for making cookies. So the sort of usage is very wide, and so this company is very excited. And what they have done now is that they have spun a division, hired the student who worked on this project for them, and as a founder, and they are now starting a new company which will take this forward. So that's another way that we can both encourage the SMEs to move up the technology path, and the students also a low risk option to get into this whole entrepreneurship and innovation path. So that's pretty much what I have to say right now, and thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Professor Gurumurthy. And the new idea that we got from the conversation is how do we also integrate with MSMEs? How do we extrapolate the value chain? How do we also be ready for a long-term value capture process, and also the risk capital for deep technology development? I think that's very important. That's very interesting to learn. All of you have given huge amount of food for thoughts, and one takeaway from this session and this meetup is, even if you can translate 2 ideas from each of you into our pilot policy interventions in Gujarat, maybe Professor Desai's practicing entrepreneurship programs, maybe Professor Sarin's framework of institutionalizing thing, these would be a real takeaway and our tribute to your time. So without much wasting time, may I request Nagarjan sir, Commissioner of Higher Education, Government of Gujarat, to sum up the conversation and mention the way forward.
Thank you, Hiranmai. It has been a very knowledge-intensive session, I would say, because each of the eminent speakers have tried to bring a the very essence of their learnings across the many years, and especially their recent experiences in startup innovation and also promoting the best practices. In fact, the best thing about the conversations today is that everyone's perspective is so different and unique because of the background experience and also the value proposition at or the value chain where they have been operating. We had some very operational type of guidance also, and we had a very strategic level guidance and also a meta view of what the ecosystem and the interaction should be. And we will certainly look into all these aspects, and we had also good suggestions about, or I have, to improve our thing, and especially what caught my eye was about the thought about not focusing on getting looking at equity or anything, and even Stanford is not owning anything in Google. Absolutely, I have also envisioned itself as a enabling organization that is trying to orchestrate the ecosystem and create what we call the software part of the ecosystem, create pathways for interactions, pathways for connecting, pathways for collaborating, and all that. And with the SSIP policy, which is supported by the Honorable Minister and heavily guided on the ground by Anju and Himanshu Pandya sir, is trying to play that role of playing a sort of what I can call is convening everyone in the ecosystem aggregating the strengths, complementing the weaknesses, and then activating the entire ecosystem. And I'm also glad to share with all the eminent people on the panel that today we can confidently say that we are able to reach each and every student even in a small village of Gujarat, because we have our network down to the colleges, and which is led by the thought leadership, action leadership is being given to the universities, and then IHub is complementing them to aggregate at the state level and then connect with the broader ecosystem of the nation. So we are in the process of developing a very organic, diversified and inclusive ecosystem, which is the need for India. In fact, I am just trying to be bold enough and predict that this could become an Indian model of startup and innovation. We have the Silicon Valley model, and what could be the alternate is that this is a very organic model that is evolving. And by each and every interaction and these kind of events in the last 1 year has only given us the confidence that we are on the right track of finding something. We can say that we are trying to find a product market fit for the ecosystem in the country. That is also one of the explorations that we are doing. And today's session, sir, I would like to submit that is bringing in a lot of ideas and thought process. Our team is already taking notes. We'll be also taking some action points and try to implement that. And in fact, we have audience from all across India who are giving their feedback, and this session will be there for posterity on our Facebook page and also on the YouTube. And we look forward to collaborating with you all eminent speakers today. And we continue to look forward to getting your guidance and support in making this student startup movement not just as a Gujarat-based movement, but as something that probably started in Gujarat but would be spreading out across India. In other panels also, people have expressed that they have done something similar to what we are doing, but here the model is pretty mature because we could move fast and agile, and we could take everyone together, and that is the thing that we can now offer to the rest of the country. I am sure with all of your support, we'll be able to do that. And I thank you all the panelists for being here today and expressing your ideas. And all your ideas will be, we will ensure that it grows 10x or even 100x. That is assurance from IHub. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Nagarjan sir. May I now request Dr. Himanshu Pandya, the chair of the conversation in the session, to share his concluding remarks.
No, I think things are pretty much clear now. What Nagarjan sir said, that people are having different backgrounds and different ideas of their experiences and expertise. But there are very important take-home inputs from our esteemed panelists. I can recall few of them. That Professor Saji Gopinath mentioned that we need to have a leadership, that sort of a Fab Lab. It was again came with a different name, that Maker and Breaker Lab from Dr. Desai, and then very experienced sort of elaborations from my friend Himanshu Rai, where he mentioned that how he is going to the villages and how he is taking the local ideas into the entrepreneurship. That is really inspiring. That is second what Mr. Nagarajan said, that Indian model of entrepreneurship. We are following the foreign models, but the Indian model is really very essential, and we are focusing more on this particular local requirement, local growth engines and local developmental aspects. I'm really thankful to all these suggestions where we need to have sort of local angel networks, where we can have a venture capitals of Ahmedabad or Rajkot or Kutch, we can say. So Ahmedabad angel networks or size of minor projects in the academic syllabuses and everything. This is really inspiring. When Professor Gopinath was mentioning that out of 4,100 startup, 1,500 products in the last few years, it's a remarkable journey, I would say. And if somebody wants to learn from the setup, we need to study in detail what exactly is happening down there. I'm really thankful to Professor Gurumurthy also, that the deep science and science technology startups should be promoted in a way that they can come to the mainstream of the requirement of the society. And this DSDT concept is really appreciable and accepted. And we are definitely going to implement this. And thank you so much for being with us. And as I told you in the beginning of the event, that we are going to have you personally to this setup, what we call as iHub. And we would request you at your suitable time and at your convenience for being with us for at least 2 days. I know it is very difficult for you people, but we don't want to have any formal sessions here. You just come and deliver the lecture. We would love if you can come here and sit with our startup for a day. You can take lunch with them. You can take dinner with them. So you can spare whole day with the startup and young minds. They are really very interesting stories in Gujarat, I tell you. Whenever we organize hackathons and meetings, each and every student, right from 13-year boy to 50 years of age, people come and they share their ideas. They want to work somewhere. They want to contribute something. And I tell you, there is not only a financial aspect, but they really want to contribute something to the society. That is really very inspiring for us. And that is what we are doing at iHub, that we are providing them platform, whatever they are looking for. If they are looking for mentorship, if they are looking for funds, if they are looking for, technical support, IPR, and whatnot. So this particular iHub is a hub where, Professor Desai rightly mentioned, that this should be a hub and we can have many spokes in the university system. So I would second what Hiranmay said, 74 universities, and right now we have more than 30 incubators in the state of Gujarat. So let us start talking to each other. Let us start working in coordination, and that would help us in developing a robust ecosystem for startups in the state of Gujarat. Thank you so much for being with us, and I really appreciate your time and your valuable suggestions. And we are sincerely working on this aspect that we just showed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much,
very much.
Pandya. Thank you all distinguished panelists, Professor Pandya, Anju Madam, Dr. Rai, Mr. Nagarajan, Professor Gurumurthy, Professor Nadi, Professor Sazi. Thank you so much. You made our day, and all the insights will be helpful to take on.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.